continue to populate the chat with them. I will be reviewing the phase reopening, and then we'll go into health and safety, and we'll go into operations, and we'll take questions at each point. And then you're also very welcome to continue to populate the Q&A doc. If I could remind everyone to mute their mics so that we can make sure that we have the best possible sound for everyone else. So here we are together in uncertainty. And I think that one of the things that I would just like to share a deep gratitude for is the continued partnership of our community. This model that we created many years ago really has come true during this pandemic for all of us. And we are all here in service of our students and your children to make sure that they have the best possible experience. So we thank you for your continued support and partnership and questions. Your feedback makes us stronger, and so we're very happy to share this journey with you and continue to address your questions and concerns as they arise. I would like to highlight as well before we jump in that this is temporary. What we are doing now in the first month of school is not what we will be doing necessarily in the second, third, and fourth months. So that whatever the plans are, let's just remember that we're viewing them as temporary plans at this very moment that will evolve as we go forward. So our goal is to have as many students back on campus as we possibly can as soon as possible, but we also want to be very conscious of health and safety, which is our #1 priority, to make sure that everyone maintains health and well-being. The other thing that I would like to address is that there are many possible ways to do this. And so what we have committed to throughout our journey is gathering lots of feedback and then making plans that honor our needs as a community, parents, students, and teachers. And I'm very pleased to say that that feedback has been very much aligned, both from parent and faculty perspective. But you might see one school who's trying it one way and another school trying it another way, and that's okay, because every school is really committed to meeting the needs of their unique and individual populations. So for us, what we've chosen with our alternating days was the majority of what our community needed, but another school might be doing alternating weeks or 2 days on, 4 days off, and that's perfectly okay. So with that, I will dive into where we have landed in terms of how we will reopen. In July, we published a playbook that had 3 possible scenarios. Fully open on campus, that would be sort of resuming as normal, and I say that with quotes because I think we are emerging in the age of a new normal. Or we had the hybrid model here, which is what I have circled, and we had the fully virtual. What we are doing now is reopening on a hybrid model. That means that the scenario in the community playbook that we shared virtually is that option. Some families will choose to remain fully virtual, and that is perfectly okay. We all have different needs and scenarios, that's why we're offering the hybrid, but with a virtual option. However, that virtual option will look different than if the school was on full virtual school. So I just want to reiterate that again, that the scenario we have adopted is the hybrid model, which means that it's a low density model. Students will come onto campus 40% of the time, learn from home 60% of the time, and then that, as I said, that might be temporary, that might evolve, the amount of time on campus. Some families will continue to learn virtually 100%, either because they're out of the country and can't resume yet, or because they've chosen to do so. But that virtual school schedule will be different than the one that we published in the reopening playbook, and then the one that we had last semester when the school was fully virtual. So what does our hybrid model look like? Here is a sample of the schedule. We will have students placed in one of 3 different pods. We will be in Dolphin Pod A, Dolphin Pod B, or Dolphin Pod C. Dolphin Pod A and B are the ones who are opting to come onto campus in a low density model. So they will come to campus every other day, and then they will learn from home on the alternate days. So Dolphin Pod A would come to campus on Sundays and Wednesdays to start. Dolphin Pod B would come onto campus on Mondays and Thursdays to start. The other time, they would be home. We have opted for rotation 1 only to start with Ignite Day as virtual. And again, we are just trying to ensure we have great structures, procedures, and health and safety at the forefront. And then we will start bringing students back onto campus more days as we go into rotation 2. Rotation 1 is only until October 8th, so it's just a little bit over a month. And so again, there's lots of room to evolve and shift and grow as we go along. Dolphin Pod C are the students who are opting to be fully virtual, and they will receive a schedule once that honors the needs of the hybrid as well. So we will send out the full and complete schedules once families have made their decisions next week on which option they are taking. I'm going to turn it over now just for a couple of moments to Ms. Davis, our Director for Learning, who's just going to share briefly the difference between synchronous and asynchronous learning. Because this is, when we're virtual, there is a lot of asynchronous learning, but it's very deep and rigorous learning, even though they may not be face-to-face with their teacher.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone, see your faces. So welcome to the new school year. The terms asynchronous and synchronous learning, probably you didn't hear before last March, but you've heard a lot since then. And they're terms used a lot when you're talking about virtual school, but they're also terms you could use for face-to-face school. So synchronous learning is scheduled learning time that's happening in real life with the values of connection, collaboration, discussion. Maybe that's when you're doing demonstrations or having students present. And that can happen both on campus or virtually during those scheduled face-to-face times or scheduled office hours. Asynchronous learning is the self-directed learning time. That builds agency, it builds independence. That's time for students to work independently or in small groups. They're reviewing or rewatching lessons or exploring content on their own. And like I said, asynchronous learning, even though we use the term to talk about learning when they're not face-to-face, in a normal 5-day week, if students were on campus, asynchronous learning happened during that school time. It was the independent learning time. With a virtual or hybrid model, that independent learning time is now happening generally off campus where students are leading their own learning. And there's value for both, and both of them build the knowledge and skills and also the agency and independence that learners need for the future. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you so much. So I want to talk now about the first week of school. Our hybrid model our school begins on September 1st. We are going to bring students back onto campus beginning the week of September 6th. The first week of school, for those 3 days, we're going to be planning for one-to-one family meetings across the school. So in secondary, it will be with advisors, and in elementary, it will be with homeroom teachers. This will allow time for reconnection and also to establish clear procedures and routines. We have come together and based on feedback from all of our stakeholders, students, parents, and teachers, come together with some community agreements that we will begin the year with so that we can all be fully aligned and moving forward in a positive direction together. There will also be classwork and school will begin and students will see their teacher and have homeroom time or have time with their classes. But really that first week is going to be spending a lot of time reconnecting. And we think this is important, A, because of the situation where there are some really strict procedures and routines that we need to adhere to, but also because our children haven't seen one another in many months. I mean, we were on virtual school for 4 months in the spring, and then of course now we've had summer. So we really want to bring everyone back and focus on building those relationships and connections together. However, we also want to spend some time in transitioning. So for grades 6, 11, and 12th graders, we will have some on-campus time during that first week. Grade 6 students will come for half days. So they'll either come on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on which pod they're in. And grade 11 and 12 will come on the same. And I'm very sorry, there's an error here. that should just be Dolphin Pod A all the way across on Wednesday and Dolphin Pod B all the way across on Thursday. So my apologies for that. I do not mean to cause confusion. But the grade 6s, they're going to come because we want to really focus on transitioning them into the secondary school well. So that will be the focus of those half days. The grade 12s are going to come, and they are really the leaders of our school in terms of being role models and being responsible young adults. And so we're going to ensure that we have our procedures and routines for the schedule well in place for when we invite the rest of our students back onto campus the following week. So what we are going to ask families to do this week actually is decide how you wish to return. Do you want to come back and have students come to school 2 days a week on the hybrid model, or is your family more comfortable remaining virtual until until more information or until the situation improves? Either option is okay, but what we need is for families to make a decision and then choose that decision for the duration of a rotation. We really pride ourselves on being flexible and honoring the needs of many. However, we also want to make sure that we are able to implement and adhere to all of the guidelines as best as possible. So we've decided to choose by our rotations, by our Ignite rotations. So the first rotation is September 1st to October 8th. So if a family decided to go virtual, they'd be choosing to stay virtual until October 8th, at which point they could decide, you know what, actually, we think it's okay, we're going to come back for rotation 2. If a family chose to stay hybrid, we would plan for that and create that in the schedule. Now, if you chose to become hybrid and then decided after a couple of weeks, actually, we'd rather stay home, you can always go back to virtual. That's not the concern. The concern is just bringing more students back onto campus outside of the rotation. Again, I reiterate here, hopefully we won't need further rotations. Hopefully the pandemic is improving, we're moving forward, and we can bring all of our students back onto campus sooner than later. And again, this schedule that we have right now is temporary. For rotation 1 only. We will assess how things are going. We will assess the needs of our community, and then we will make adjustments for the following rotation, October 11th. So principals are going to send out further details tomorrow on Monday, and they are going to then ask you to complete a form where you will choose based on your child. So you might have different children with different needs, but based on your child, are they coming back hybrid? Or are you going to stay virtual? After that, we will create our pods and we will send out further details the following week that has more complete schedules and information. I'm going to pause there and I'm going to ask Mr. Davis if there have been any questions about this information that we've just shared. We just want to reiterate that we are going to go into health and safety next. So these would just be questions about the schedule, the phase reopening, and the rotations.
I have a question, if it's okay. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Now I am, we are in Saudi Arabia, so the causeway is closed now. So I'll be signing Muhja as fully virtual until the causeway is open. So if the causeway is open in, say, at the middle of rotation 1, can she change to attending?
We're actually working very hard on the causeway issue. So yes, we will address that issue of the causeway with our families. And you're right, you don't have a choice. So that might be something that we have to be a little bit more flexible with. But we're hoping to find out more information about the causeway before school begins.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Davis, do you have any other questions that you feel we want to bring to the whole group before we move on?
Yes, there's a lot of great questions. Perhaps you could review which students will be on campus on the first 3 days.
Yes. So on the first 3 days, on September 2nd and 3rd. So September 1st, we're going to launch, but it's going to be all virtual. And that's going to be for rotation 1. Tuesdays are virtual. On September 2nd, which is a Wednesday, grade 6, grade 11 and grade 12, Pod A will be on campus. And then on the Thursday, grade 6, grade 11, and grade 12, pod B will be on campus.
Hi, this is Shanil from Bahrain. Thank you for this call. Pretty informative. Just a question I have. What I'm paranoid about is, and just to understand before I make the decision about sending both my kids to school, for a grade 6, right? My son's in grade 6. How many students per class would you be having? And what's your strategy to maintain social distancing, just to make sure that, yeah, I think you get my question without having to elaborate any further. What's your strategy to ensure you maintain social distancing and their safety is secure at all times? That will be my important thing for me to understand. Unless you're still getting there. I apologize if you are still getting there.
No, these are all great questions. We really are so grateful for all of them. So this is a nice time to segue into the health and safety, but we will be developing the pods. There's no more than 10 in a pod. We've said 10 to 12 in a pod, but we're hoping that they will be even smaller to start with. So that's what I said, how we might evolve. So like rotation 2, we might have more kids in a group, but we know that in the beginning, smaller is better as our children are getting used to the parameters and the social distancing. So it could be that a pod is as small as 5 to 7. It really depends on what parents choose and then how we split them up day to day. But really, the guidance is our classes are quite spacious, so that we can have 10 students in a pod and still have them very separated. And the principals have a lot of strategies for ensuring and maintaining social distancing that we will be going over as a faculty together.
So for the virtual school, all virtual students will meet on September 1st, like Mohja will be online for September 1st only, right? Not 2nd or 3rd. Is this correct?
So we are going to publish the schedule for that first week. No, all of the students, everyone is going to be virtual. The students who, like 11th and 12th graders who are virtual, they will still have time. So we have to publish a virtual school schedule once we know which of our students are on campus and which of our students are off campus. So this is why we can't give you a virtual school schedule right now, because we need to set it up based on the decisions of our families. And that's why we're going to be asking for a decision this week, so that we can create the pods and the schedules for you.
Thank you.
Okay. There might be further questions, and keep putting them in the chat. We can come back to them, but I'm going to turn it over now to Miss Jo Garahi, our deputy head of school, who's been working tirelessly to ensure that we have really sound health and safety guidelines in place.
Thanks, Tara. Good afternoon, everyone. And I just want to also say a warm welcome back to all of the familiar faces and families, and a special welcome to the new faces and families joining RVIS at these very interesting times. So yes, I'm going to go through some information, health and safety, our #1 priority. And I ask you again to please put questions into the chat. And rest assured that there is going to be follow-up communications and things coming home to you. You don't have to remember all these details at all. Tara mentioned the partnership model, and I think it could never be more important than as we start this school year. We do not take lightly at all the great trust you show us every year, this year especially, when your children return to our campus and are in our care. So yes, we're working diligently to ensure that all our health and safety and operation measures do everything we can to ensure that we minimize the risk and that we keep them safe while they're at school. We need your help as parents also to ensure that our kids understand that these rules are not forever, but they're in place now. And just as our approach to learning will change, we will look at and review things as the information and the situation changes. We certainly are putting together our guidelines for health, safety and operations based on the Ministry of Health here in Bahrain, and further communications that we're expecting to receive from the government about the reopening of schools. But in the meantime, If you don't mind, Tara, next slide. I just want to say that we know there are many things we can do that will help, that are within our control and help us to minimise risk to our students. And you'll see on this slide here that while we can never say that it's an absolute zero risk, we know that by wearing masks and by maintaining physical distancing, they are the first two things that we really will be working hard, helping our kids to understand what that looks like, training, modelling, practicing, and adhering to these guidelines on these things. So the physical distancing question came up, and we've adopted a 1.5 metre as we believe that's best research. And given our size of campus and our low numbers, we're able to use this physical distancing approach in the layout of our classrooms, how many desks, how many chairs, etc. will be in rooms, and certainly the size of the pods, which has already been mentioned. We will be requiring masks for all. You'll see these little pictures here that we know in the early childhood that, so we're talking nursery, pre-K, KG, the visor or screen is also acceptable. And we ask already for you to help us by practicing with your kids to wear their masks. It is a requirement in Bahrain that everyone wears a mask, and we will be using that on campus as well. So masks for all, make sure that it's the mask that suits your child, it's well fitted. There are different types, as we know, and it's something that you can start practicing in little chunks of time already before they return to campus. Also the hygiene, hand washing routines, we're going through all of these things, ensuring that all the necessary things are in place for kids to have access to hand sanitizations, bathroom setup, all of these different elements of hygiene. We ask you to ensure they come to school, in clean clothes every day. We will be ensuring that our children are assigned their table and chair, laptop that only they will use while they're at school. Their pens, pencils and other equipment, headphones even, will all be assigned per child and will not be shared with other children. Thanks, Tara. If you just to the next slide. So another very important thing is that, I guess if there was one golden rule that we'd ask for our parents, is that is to, first of all, ensure that we do not send anybody to school that is not well, okay? So if your child is unwell, we need you to keep them home. We're saying the same to our staff as well. We are going to be asking parents to do a temperature check at home. We've thought about and talked about this a lot, and we believe it's far more accurate for it to be done at home as the first check for the day. And then, of course, it will also be done when the students come on campus within the first block or hour of the school day. So then we have two sort of temperature checks to start the day. Children will have an RVIS health card. They will wear them on their lanyard, the coloured lanyards that you see us with our ID badges. And the health card will have a place for parents and then for the school just to write the temperature for each day of the week. We've also decided on the back of the health card to have like a little checklist for coming to school each day, which would have things on it like, remember to bring your refillable water bottle, your lunch, spare masks. We'll be asking that you put at least two spare masks in a little Ziploc bag in your child's bag. Of course, we will have additional masks available at school for those that, might break or need to be replaced. Okay. Obviously, cleaning the campus, lots of details. Again, adherence to the Ministry of Health's approved, practices and products. They have a whole section of their website that has been put up for everybody to see about what we should be doing in terms of cleaning public places and what sorts of things we should be using. There'll be nothing that is of a corrosive nature or has any danger signs on it. We know that we need to focus mainly on frequently touched areas around the school and in classrooms. Those things are doorknobs, handrails, the bathroom taps. So our team here is putting together a process for our cleaners that's very explicit about what areas are cleaned at what time and the difference between those areas that need that frequent wiping and cleaning and then the daily deep cleaning of all places. So there's a continuous schedule of cleaning while ever students are on campus, deep cleaning after school hours. And I think, if you just, Tara, next slide, please. I think in terms of the health and safety, then there are certain operations or things that are just common or that we do in the school that we're also looking at and revising again for the first month, for the first rotation, that we will review based on feedback and how things develop here in Bahrain with the COVID virus. So one of the things is our snack lunch food provision. We made the decision that there would be no food services on campus during the first rotation. Again, just for the first rotation, a rule that we're putting in place for now, not forever. So we'll be asking students to bring a packed lunch and their snacks, a refillable water bottle, and rest assured that there is a whole process we've developed about how you refill a water bottle safely and with support where age appropriate. But we're asking that the children will bring those things in. They will eat within their same pod that they're in their classes with, but we will utilize space where we can. We know that being outdoors when the weather permits is great and allows that to maintain physical distancing, but also to have the importance of the flow of fresh air. In addition to lunches, transportation for those that use the school bus service. Again, there are already guidelines in place in Bahrain for public transport, and so we will adhere to no more than a 50% capacity on buses. Students travelling on buses will, things such as sanitise hands on entering the bus. They'll have assigned seats. All the surfaces, be they seat belts, anything that basically they're sitting on or touch on the bus, will be cleaned after use and before, like from the morning to the afternoon bus runs. We're going to ask students to enter campus at 8:15 of a morning, and there will be designated points of arrival for cars, buses, etc., children who walk to the campus. We're going to encourage and ask our parents, wherever possible, to do, I think we call it the kiss and drop system, where you drive and there'll be staff on supervision to ensure they safely come into the campus and then proceed to their rooms with a very designated route for all transitions in the school for our students. Of course, nursery students, pre-K, KG, grade 1 and 2, we've always had that they are able to be collected and dropped off and collected by parents. So we have a system in place, and we'll be allowing one parent carer to come onto campus if you have an early childhood or grade 1-2 student when you're dropping off of a morning or picking them up. Again, the process will be to bring them through the breezeway area, and there'll be staff on duty at the hallway doors, where the transition will be then for the student to go to their class. To make sure that we're keeping everybody in our school community safe, we are at the first phase of our reopening. Parents or carers will not be entering hallways or classrooms, okay? But we do understand that there's going to be need for support, especially for our younger students, and we will have, additional staff and people on hand to help and assist there. And of course, we'll be keeping communication with parents, as we always do, if any challenges or problems in that regard arise. Thanks, Tara. Just want to also reiterate again that, yes, we want, for the kids, there is a sense of loss, and some of the things that, as school was back in, before February 26th or whatever the date was we closed, we want to ensure that we are giving all the opportunities we can for our kids to, yes, physically distance, but they still need to be socially connected. And that's something we've talked a lot about with our wellbeing planning. So yes, they will remain in pods for their snack and lunch breaks, but we're going to utilize spaces, again, schedules of assigned places where kids can go and run and do the things that kids need to do and get rid of some of that energy, with cleaning schedules to support and rotations, so that we have staggered breaks for lunch and recess to minimize the density of wherever kids are moving in our school. But this is really important. So we're looking at and talking a lot about the kinds of things they can do in their breaks, again, without compromising health and safety, so still with masks, still with physically distancing. I should have mentioned when I spoke about the mask, one thing I did forget is we all know that it's extremely hard to have a mask on all the time. So many schools I know have done this that have already reopened. We've developed a process for a mask break, as we call it, and a mask break, a shorter period of time. And again, that will be something that teachers will supervise, and we will train our kids when's it okay to have a mask break, within the pod or if we're outside, just so that if those times come up where a child just needs to go and sit somewhere, they take their own chair to the back of the room and have that little mask break time, totally distanced away from everybody else. So I mention it because there's just so many parts to this, but I hope it's at least somewhat, reassuring that we're trying to think of as many things as possible. And as I said, the partnership remains as important as ever, because there are things that, your children and you will be able to share back with us as feedback that will help us to further develop our plans. We've looked at a number of reopening plans of schools. As I said, I keep referring to the Ministry of Health site, and we look forward to further details that we have been told will be coming with regards specifically to reopening schools here in Bahrain. So with that, I think, yes. Thanks, Mr. Davis. Questions that are in the chat?
And I'll just jump in really quickly. We know that we're giving you a lot of information. We know that the email we sent you last week had a lot of information in it. And then obviously now we're trying to review it all. We are compiling very much more visual, short one-pagers so that you have all of these details for easy access and easy review. We just wanted to make sure that you had information as soon as possible last week and to give you a complete overview. As well, principals will be hosting additional meetings at the division level to talk through the schedules and the things that are very specific to the different divisional levels. But yes, please, what other questions do we have?
Oh, where to begin?
So Mr. Davis is going to bring us some from the chat. And then if we haven't answered them after that, then we'll take some from the team as the group as well. Mr. Davis?
So maybe, sorry, I'm echoing here. I have something happening.
Mr. Alpha, why don't you jump in with your question while Mr. Davis is sorting it out? Mr. Davis, it might be that you have 2 logins.
Got it. No, I don't have it. A virtual school, what will that look like?
So the virtual school, we are still working to put together the schedule. And that's why I reiterate again, it's so essential that we get the decisions for each family this week so that we can put together a schedule that's going to honor the needs of the hybrid and the virtual. We understand that this is a tough decision. We are doing everything we can to mitigate risk and put all of the guidelines in place, both for learning and health and safety. But we also, many of us are parents and are also facing the same decision. And so we know that it's difficult, but we also have to have the information so that we can plan. And Mr. Alfawaz, you're muted. So if you want to jump in with your question, you have to unmute.
Excuse me, you mentioned in your email that you're going to be talking about the health card.
Yes.
I did not hear it. Are you still planning to talk about it or not?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so the idea of the health card is, as I said, about the temperature taking. And we know that temperature taking is one important indicator of a child's, health. However, we also have to be very careful, and I know you know this because you're parents, kids are still going to have a temperature because they've got an earache and everything else. But we're asking that on the health card, there will be a place for the parent on each day the child is coming to campus to record their temperature at home. When they arrive at campus, we'll also record the temperature. They'll wear their health card on their lanyard. So you'll also see the recording of their temperature for that day when they were at school. So the health card is a check, okay, one of the checks that we can use. I just happened to mention the reverse of the health card will also have on it the checklist of things for the kids that we hope they will use to be responsible and know what do I have to bring to school each day. So we can make them elementary and secondary appropriate and they can check on that. Okay, so in addition to that, teachers will have very clear guidelines too about the role they play in monitoring. Our school nurse, of course, Nurse Sam, who all those returning families know has been with our school for 12 years, is working diligently to ensure that any child that, we even suspect it might be unwell, we have a process in place to ensure that we're able to contact parents and send them home if need be. Okay, so the health card check of temperature.
Thank you. Very
You're
good. Thank you.
I saw a question in the chat about our new teachers, which we are very happy, actually. We have 10 new teachers joining us this year. 5 joined us from overseas, and 5 are joining us from on island. But we are pleased to say that all of our teachers are here. Most of them have been completely finished with quarantine, and we are welcoming our new teachers onto campus tomorrow to start our normal annual new faculty orientation. And we will be sending out details of who the new teachers are in an upcoming Wednesday weekly. So we will make sure that those normal systems are in place, but we're also conscious that you're getting a lot of information about health and safety and virtual, hybrid versus virtual and all of that. So we're just trying to balance the information you get.
There was a question there about the airflow in the rooms. Just in the chat I noticed. So again, 2 reasons for keeping those doors open. One is to ensure that we're getting as much airflow through rooms as we can. Of course, we have the ability to open windows, and when the weather permits and we're able to do that, we'll also be using a policy of having our windows open as much as possible. The other reason is to ensure that those frequently touched surfaces like doorknobs, if the door is open, children don't need to be touching that as they enter the classroom. And once we can utilize outside, we've got beautiful outside spaces that learning can also be carried out in our playground areas, etc., within our pods still. So for ventilation and air, yes, we've definitely discussed that one.
Okay, I have a question about the synchronizing time. During the virtual days, the kids will be working on synchronizing time or not, and is it applicable for all the grades?
My apologies. The question was about what's the time for the virtual days, and is it applicable for all grades? Okay, so that's it. We will publish as soon as possible what the virtual schedule looks like, but it is very dependent on how many students are coming back hybrid or virtual. So it will not be the same whole school. There will always be a difference between elementary and secondary, but like I said, we will get all of those schedules out to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And I'm going to, I'm just putting in the chat again. Again, we had so many questions on the doc that we sent out last week. It was very helpful. If you haven't gone back and looked, perhaps you put a question in, but you haven't gone back and looked at the answers. It's also interesting to review what other people had asked. So we have, the questions are all down one side. We've put in answers in there. Feel free to add more, and we will continue to answer those questions. We are getting to them daily. So if you put a question in, we are answering it in as real a time as we possibly can. I saw here from a question about after-school activities. They are on hold initially for rotation 1, but actually our PE team, even back in the spring, they had a plan for starting in September, starting in October, or starting in January. So we're ready to go when we can. We also are looking into some virtual after-school options. Sports teams will be postponed, unfortunately, but already all of the ADs on island have had lots of meetings. They met throughout the spring. So they have a plan for a season that could start in January, and we would still have all of the sports teams. I will, looking at the question here about Ignite Day. So Tuesdays are always our Ignite Day. So it's a unique part of our VIS. And what we've decided to do this time, just for rotation 1, is just ensure that we're offering Ignite Day virtually for everyone. They will have live meetings. They will have virtual classes. In the elementary, they will still be doing their interdisciplinary units, and they'll have homeroom time. We're still going to be offering some of the different electives that come on. And then the secondary students will have their seminars. So they'll still be able to take part of seminars and working towards their badges in their different areas that are part of the Ignite Day in the secondary school. Now we're hoping, we really are hoping then that in rotation 2, we can come onto campus and have more time on campus for Ignite Day. We also recognize, though, that there are some students who have really enjoyed virtual school, and have kind of thrived and flourished. And so we also want to be able to provide some options where we might be able for some students, if they choose, to continue some virtual learning, what we call a blended model, even as we resume into a more fully open campus. Ms. Burns, do you want to speak to the question about virtual school and Ignite Day, or virtual school for nursery? Because it was very successful in the spring, and I think you have the most insight into the types of things that were done.
Actually, this is me, Azhari, Dafallah, asking that question, and my son Abdulaziz is a newcomer to nursery next year, so that's because he wasn't being able to sit properly for the pre-nursery virtual schools which we had last year. So that's where my concerns are coming from.
Yes, and they're valid concerns. Like I said, we share your concerns too. But Mrs. Burns, are you there?
Yes, hello everyone. My name's Mrs. Burns. I'm the elementary principal. I look after nursery to grade 5. So we will be working closely with the nursery teacher. Certainly the ultimate goal is to have the younger children on campus as much as possible, but we definitely recognise that that takes time and support and transition. So while they're at home on their virtual days, there will be opportunities. There will be short face-to-face meetings with the teacher, and the teacher will also be able to post a lot of learning suggestions families to do at home with their students as well. So there'll be lots of opportunity to still learn even when they're not in the classroom with the teacher. And the teachers did some fantastic projects last year involving home and school, gardening projects, art projects, lots and lots of fun projects that students could do at home with the support of the teacher and family. So that will continue as well. And more information will definitely be sent out from me about all of these things. Early childhood will look a little bit different from the other grades because we recognise that there's different needs in different ages, and we will do what's developmentally appropriate and best for the students, not only the academic learning, but of course supporting their social emotional learning as well.
And I see a question about balancing time between virtual and hybrid. And so again, we are very conscious of our teachers who have put forth an astounding virtual school program, and will do the same in the hybrid. We want to make sure that they have enough time to meet the needs of every child and also plan for continued excellent and rigorous learning. So when we are getting in the family needs, that's when we'll be determining how they're going to offer virtual, how they're going to offer hybrid. And that's another reason why we're asking families to choose by rotation, because we need to be able to put a schedule into place that students and teachers can follow for a period of time. So I'm going to, we're reaching the end of our presentation. There have been lots of great questions, some good considerations for us coming through here that we'll continue to consider. Mazayan, you will know when your pod is when you make your decision, and then we'll put you all in your pods, and then we'll send it out next week, we hope, perhaps towards the end of next week. But yes, you'll have your pod before school begins on September 1st. We can't wait to see you. So the main thing is now, next steps, look for an email from your division principal tomorrow. So if you have a child in elementary and a child in secondary, you'll get 2. You will then fill out the form and select your choice. We're asking for that to be done by Wednesday so that we can collect the information in and start to create our pods and our schedules based on that. We will also be sending out additional information on, a snapshot of health and safety, a snapshot of the whole program, what Ignite will look like. We'll send additional information in every couple of days so as not to overwhelm, but we will ensure that you have everything you need. We will leave that Q&A doc open so you continue to put your questions there. We will host additional divisional meetings like this so that elementary parents can come together and ask further questions once the schedules come out. And we are here for anything you need. Telephone, email, just reach out. And thank you again for your partnership, for your support, for your ideas and your insights. We are really grateful to be serving your children. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you very soon, either virtually or in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. That's it. سكري حبيبتي.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Rawan, I think you're still on, so I just saw your question in the chat. When you fill out your form, you will have the option of choosing if you need your children to be on the same day. So that's something that we're very conscious of as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. It was lovely to see you here. Mr. Al-Fawaz, you're looking for more information on the nursery? Yeah, we can't hear you, sorry. It's still on mute. Perhaps if you wanted, I'll just have Mrs. Burns call you and then she can talk to you privately about some of your questions. So I'll ask her to give you a call. Okay, all right, bye.